Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here, and we are back in the old world with our second 500-point game. A member of the gaming club came over with his Beastmen Brayherds warband, and I had made up 7 separate 500-point army lists, and I let him choose them randomly. For the second game, he picked the Green Omen Boyz, my original Orc and Goblin warband, so Orcs and Goblins again. The Green Omen Boyz are my largest and oldest Orc and Goblin army, so I had a lot of choices when it came to making a 500-point list. The thing that I was struggling with conceptually when I was making my Warhammer Old World lists was, how do you earn points in this game? In 8th edition, it was relatively straightforward. You either won by killing the opposing troops by having strong units, or you won through combat resolution. That would make the enemy run away, you would run them down, and you would end up killing them. Those are generally your 2 paths, but Old World is kind of perplexing me a little bit. In most cases, your troops are as strong or maybe even a little weaker than they were in 8th edition. Generally, opponent's armor will be more effective, and because you no longer fight in 2 ranks and you don't have the step-up rule, you'll get less attacks in any given round of combat. So wiping out the enemy by way of smashing them on the head seems a lot harder. Also, breaking them seems a lot more difficult. So long as you don't outnumber the opponent 2 to 1, they get their unmodified leadership value to just fall back in good order. So, how do you actually wipe out an enemy unit? I wasn't exactly sure, so I figured my best bet was to just make as hard-hitting an army as I could. As much strength and armor-piercing as I could reasonably fit into a 500-point list. So here's what we got. An all-orc list led by the Dark Boss, my Orc Big Boss with a great weapon and a trollhide trousers. Trollhide trousers are kinda expensive, but it seems like a really good defensive item. +1 armor and a 5-up regen save. At 40 points, it's kind of expensive, but the Orc Big Boss himself is pretty cheap at 55. So defensively, he's toughness 5, 2 wounds, 4-up armor, 5-up regen. With the great weapon, he's got 3 weapon skill 5 attacks, strength 6, AP 2. Only leadership 7, which is a bit of a change. Thankfully, we all have the warband rule, so we get to add a rank bonus to that. In 8th edition, it pained me to do so, but I rarely bothered with Orc Big Bosses. With all the attacks being thrown around by the opposing troops, it was seldom worth the points. It didn't make that big of a difference in the combat results. So it would be great if these guys were a good investment again. To go with them, I chose a big unit of Orc Big Unz. Yeah, I could have gone with a Black Orc boss and the Black Orcs. I was tempted, but I really like just regular Orcs. I want to see if I can make these guys work. So the Green Omen Big Unz are 25 Orc Big Unz with spears and shields. Spears were kind of a meh choice in 8th edition, but I think they might be legit now. Orcs get a lot of advantages when they charge. The Choppa's rule lets them reroll rolls of 1 to wound and gives them an additional point of armor penetration, but I often struggle with actually getting the charge. Warband does help you get to reroll the distance, but still, just knowing myself, I don't think I'm going to get the charge all the time. So getting to fight in a whole extra rank when you're not charged seems like it goes quite a ways to make up for this. Because when I get charged, I'm probably going to be striking last, I'm going to take a bunch of casualties, even though the Orcs are fairly resilient, 5-up armor and toughness 4. Still, Big Unz are no longer weapon skill 4 like they used to be. They are +1 strength as before and armor bane 1, which is not as good. They're also leadership 6 now, which again is mitigated by the warband rule. They actually come out ahead on that one. And weirdly, the Orc boss is leadership 7. So that's actually pretty good, especially if the boss stays alive. So yeah, I took full command on these guys. To go with them, I went through the army list and I took some other hard-hitting units. I took a single stone troll. They were good before, I assume they're good now. The reason I went for a stone troll is because that's what I had painted for the Green Omen Boyz. The stone trolls have an armor save of 5-up as opposed to a 6-up. They also have magic resistance 1, which isn't going to matter. Troll regen is only 5-up now, and their vomit attack works a little bit differently. Instead of substituting all of your attacks for a single strength 5 attack that ignores armor, you get an additional attack at the end of combat that's strength 3 and AP -2. I guess that's okay, but you also lose your stomp. So that's Apex Crater Crest, my Stone Troll. Then we get the Skullpire Boys, a unit of 5 Boar Boys with a champion, which I completely forgot during the game. Didn't even pull out my champion model. I just completely forgot that I had put a boss in this unit, which is important. In addition to the extra attack he gives you, he, again, is also leadership 7, so you don't have this tiny Boar Boy unit running around with leadership 6. The Boar Boys were not very good in 8th edition. But their cost is more reasonable in the old world, and they have a lot of special rules. They look kinda burly. I equipped them with heavy armor, shields, and cavalry spears, so they've got a 3-up armor save, which again is hard to reduce now. Orc initiative is now 3, which is better, so if they get their charge off, they're gonna have a lot of bonuses. In addition to the +3 initiative that they're gonna get, they also have Furious Charge, which is gonna give the Boar Boys on top of the Boars an extra attack. The Cavalry Spears will give the Orcs +1 strength and -1 AP. The Boars, because of Tusker Charge, will get +1 strength and -1 AP. Because of Choppas, the whole unit will get to reroll 1s to wound and have an additional -1 AP. And of course they have Movement 7, Warband, and Swift Stride, so I think it's pretty likely they're going to get that charge. So that was my attempt at making a unit that could really deliver a punch. In contrast to that, we have the Arrowheads, 5 regular orcs with bows and shields. Why Orc Boys? I don't think missile weapons are particularly good in Warhammer the Old World, and they weren't very good in Warhammer 8th edition. So why bother with these dudes? Well, the army list presented a couple of opportunities. Number 1, you can have orcs in units of 5. I mean, if you're going to take a unit of missile troops in a 500-point game, why not have a unit of 5? Also, orc bows are free, which blows my mind. So long as you're not taking spears or additional hand weapons, there's no reason not to give orcs bows. This kind of bothers me. My main unit in the Green Omen Boyz is a giant unit of orcs with just shields. There's no downside to having them with bows now. Even if you never intend to shoot with them, they've got the potential of at least doing a stand and shoot if they get charged. I don't know, it kind of bugs me. On the other hand, I did have this unit of orcs with shields from a couple editions ago that I never got to actually removing all the shields. You couldn't take Orc Boys the shields in 8th edition. Anyway, I figured, hey, now's an opportunity to actually get some use out of these guys, and the big thing that I like about them is that they're close order. I mean, yeah, I could have made them skirmishers or something, but let's say the Big Unz are involved in a big fight and I've got these boys kind of creeping along off to the flank. If they charge in, they'll get an additional +1 on top of any flank attacks or casualties that they cause just for being close order. Same with the Troll, so even if the dice completely abandon me, it's possible I can build up a bunch of static combat res from these small units of close order troops. Now, the FAQ did come out a couple of days ago, and it changed this. Now you have to have a unit strength of 5 to claim the close order bonus. But at the time, when we were playing this, that's the way it worked. Now, it has to be said, all these units except for the Stone Troll have Impetuous, meaning that if they're within charge range, then they have to roll a die on a 1, 2, or 3 or something. They go charging off whether you want them to or not. I think that's okay. Generally speaking, I think I'm all right with these guys going and plunging themselves headfirst into the enemy army. But that's about all I have to say about my army. I'm worried I've talked for way too long about them. Let's go on to the opponent's army. It's exactly the same as the last game. General is a Gorebull with blackened plate, a shield, many-limbed fiend, and gnarled hide. Got a 2-up armor save, toughness 5, 4 wounds, 5 attacks at weapon skill 5 and strength 5. We have 2 units of a single Razor Gore, 14 Gores with the Champion, the True Horn, and additional hand weapons, a Chaos Spawn, and a Chaos Troll with an additional hand weapon. There, that was a lot faster. Again, to make it easy on ourselves, we're doing pitched battle. We're keeping the terrain exactly the same as the last game, so 2 forests on the left, a building in the lower right, which we're just treating as impassable, and a hill in the upper right. The forests we're counting as difficult but not dangerous. For my deployment, the Dark Boss of course went in with the Orc Big Unz. The Boar Boys went to the right of them between the Big Unz and the building. Stone Troll is to the left, and I went and put the R Boys in the forest on the left. Having been impressed with the Gores in the last game, they took center stage in this one. To the left of them, we've got a Chaos Troll and a single Razor Gore, and off to the right we have the Chaos Spawn, the Minotaur, and another Razor Gore. So we roll to see who gets the first turn. The Orcs get a +1, which is weird. That means we win the dice roll and get to go first. I see no reason not to push forward aggressively. The Troll passes Stupidity, the Orc Boys move up as far as they can, the Boar Boys kind of keep pace with them. I don't particularly want to get charged by the Razor Gore, and I definitely don't want to get charged by the Minotaur. Same thing on the left, don't really want the Troll charged by the Razor Gore, but I amble him forward to keep up with the Orc Boys. And I'm tempted to advance the R Boys on the left at full speed. They're in the forest, so they're down 1 movement, so they'd only go 6 inches forward. But hey, I gave them bows, might as well use the bows. They just advance at normal speed, go up their 3 inches, and take shots at the Razor Gore, and completely miss. Over to the Beastmen Brayherds, and they're going to match that aggressive move with some aggressive moves of their own. The Gorebull goes and rolls on the Gaze of the Gods chart and ends up getting the good one. He's going to be +1 strength and leadership for the rest of the game. The Razor Gore on the left gets right up in my troll's face. The Minotaur goes and just launches him out in front of the rest of the army, daring me to charge him. The Chaos Troll passes Stupidity, and him and the Gores aren't quite as enthusiastic, so they hang back a little bit, keeps pace with the spawn. Razor Gore on the right also moves in kind of a supporting manner. Okay, back to the Orcs and Goblins. I feel like the Beastmen have kind of thrown down a challenge, and I'm willing to accept. Let's see how these Orcs do. I'm going to try and hurl the Orc Boys and the Big Unz into the Minotaur. With all the static combat resolution I've got, I think it's very unlikely that he's going to hold that charge, and if I can break him, I think that's going to be a big problem for the Beastmen army, even if it does leave the rest of my army in kind of a bad position. So first thing that I'm going to do is the Orc Big Boss, the Dark Boss, is going to activate the Wah in the command phase. So I make a leadership check, which I end up passing. So until the start of my next turn, that Orc unit, the Big Unz, they're going to be at +1 combat resolution and can re-roll any ones when rolling to hit. The problem is that I've still got a little bit of 8th edition brain. In 8th edition, the charge from the Orc Big Unz to the Minotaur would have been pretty easy. But now, in the old world, we have to factor in the wheel before we can charge. And because the orcs are deployed 6 wide, because that's what you got to do if you want to get a rank bonus when you've got 26 orcs in the unit, and because their bases are wider now, 30 millimeters as opposed to 25 millimeters, that's kind of a lot of distance. Still, we got 4 inches for our movement, plus the highest of 2d6, and I can re-roll them because I've got the warband rule. Well, it doesn't work out. Both times I attempt my charge rolls, I don't roll higher than a 4, and so I just stumble forward. It's not great, but all is not lost. The Boar Boys make the charge, and yeah, they're probably not going to win, but they could put a big dent into this guy. The Razor Gore on the left was just daring my troll to charge him, and so yeah, absolutely, I'll take that dare. Troll passes Stupidity, easily makes it into combat with the Razor Gore. The R Boys on the left are technically within charge range of that Razor Gore and have to make an impetuous test. They fail, so they have to declare a charge. And of course, they're in the forest, so instead of rolling 2d6 and picking the highest, they roll 2d6 and pick the lowest, and so they fail. Might have been nice to have those guys in the combat, but it was really unlikely. So the Boar Boys roll in, and we've got 3 guys in base-to-base contact and 2 on the flanks. So what is it? That's going to be 8 Boar Boy attacks at Strength 4, AP -2, plus 5 Boars at Strength 4, AP -2 as well. Everyone gets to reroll 1s to wound. I don't know what the averages were, but I didn't manage to cause any damage to the Gorball, and I wasn't terribly shocked. In return, the Gorball passes his Primal Rage leadership check, so he gets to reroll 1s to hit, and more importantly, he's AP -2 now. That's bad news for the Boar Boys. Their armor save goes down to a 5+, and I lose 2 of them. That means I lose the combat by 1 because I am remembering close order in this game, but I end up failing my break test. Yeah, my general's right there with his leadership of 10, but I do it anyway. So the Boar Boys take off, which is disheartening, but my opponent decides to restrain with the Minotaur. He's planning on smashing into the Orc Boys, and I think he wants the Minotaur's help. The Orc Big Unz do manage to pass their panic test. We go over to the Troll combat. The Troll doesn't end up hurting the Razor Gore. It does have toughness 5. The Razor Gore manages to stick a wound on the Troll, but the Troll does regen it, although it does count for combat resolution, so it's 1 for me for my close order and 1 for my opponent for getting the regened wound. It's a push. Back to the Beasts of Chaos, and it's all bad news all the time. The Razor Gore, Gorebull, and Gores all charge the front of the Orc Big Unz unit, and the Chaos Troll charges the flank. The only good news in this whole mess is that in the command phase, the Gorebull went and rolled Stupidity on his Gaze of the Gods table. As the only unit out of combat, the Chaos Spawn ambles over to the Troll combat with the Razor Gore, and we're straight on to the close combat phase. My opponent doesn't issue any challenges, so I issue 1 with my Big Unz champion. Probably a dumb idea. I should have just remembered to put some attacks into the True Horn in my turn, and then if I managed to kill him and my boss was still alive in the next round, try and use him to challenge out the Minotaur. But that's not what I did. I challenged with the boss, and the True Horn accepts. And the True Horn just went and executed my boss. That didn't help. He doesn't put any attacks into my big boss, which is fine, but he does end up killing 13 other Big Unz. Just a pile of dead orcs. Again, with all those special rules for charging on the Gores and the Primal Rage rolls, this is kind of what Beast Herds seem to do. The only good news is that I've still got the +1 combat resolution because of the Waaagh, and the Dark Boss does get to swing and kills off 3 Gors with his 3 attacks. Also, I'm just shy of being outnumbered 2-1, so I still get my regular break test. Unfortunately, because we lost so many guys, we're down to just 1 rank, so we've got a leadership of 8. So if I manage to double 1 the break test, I can just give ground. If I get 8 or less, then I fall back in good order, which I do. So the Big Unz run away and immediately rally, and here's where we end up with some weird situations for pursuit. The rules for pursuit is that the pursuing units just line up center to center against the unit that they're trying to catch and move their 2d6 inches towards them. The problem is that when you have a bunch of individual units, that doesn't make a ton of sense. If they're all aiming towards the center of the unit they're trying to catch, then they're all just going to make this giant log jam towards the center front of my unit. I mean, the most likely result in that case would be that only 1 unit successfully completes its pursuit move into the fleeing orcs. That doesn't make a ton of sense. So what we decide to do instead is to allow my opponent to go unit by unit, make their pursuit move, and then charge along the direction that would actually get them in contact with my orc unit. That still has the interesting effect of the Chaos Troll is now going to be going into my front, and there's no room left for one of the units. My opponent decides to leave out the Gors. So the Razor Gore, Minotaur, and Chaos Troll all follow up, the Gors follow in behind. It's still not exactly looking great for the orcs. We now go over to the fight with the Razor Gore and the Stone Troll. That goes a lot better. The Razor Gore completely fails to hurt Apex Crater Crest, and he sticks 2 wounds on the Razor Gore. That means the Razor Gore loses by 2, but it manages to pass its break test, which is pretty nice because it's probably just looking at a 5 or less. So the Razor Gore gives ground, and I decide to restrain with the Stone Troll. He's still in command range of the Dark Boss. Leadership 8, he passes and then reforms. He's got to save my bacon. He goes and faces the Big Unz, Razor Gore, Minotaur, and Troll combat. So back to my turn, let's see what we can do about this mess. The Troll goes and passes Stupidity, which is good, and the Dark Boss goes and uses Rallying Cry. It's a command ability that the Orc Big Bosses get. It's basically an additional attempt to rally units nearby. With that, the Boar Boys are able to rally. I move them facing directly to the left because I figure I'm going to lose the combat with the Big Unz. I'm going to get pushed back a little, and hopefully, if everyone's still there a couple turns from now, that'll give the Boar Boys an opportunity to charge in and help. My Stone Troll goes and charges the rear of the Chaos Troll, and the Auror Boys go and fail Impetuous again and try and haul off after that Razor Gore. They were still in the woods, so of course they go and miserably fail again. Nice job, you dummies. So because my orcs have forgotten about their bows and are trying to Minecraft their way through this forest, we go straight to the close combat phase, and there's a lot going on. We're going to start with the Big Unz combat. The Minotaur passes its Primal Rage check, but the Razor Gore fails. This time, the Dark Boss and the Minotaur end up in a challenge. The Minotaur gets to go first and puts 3 wounds on the Dark Boss. I do manage to regen one of them with the Troll Hide Trousers, but that doesn't actually help. He only has 2 wounds, and regenning doesn't give you any benefit from the combat result, so it's like all of them count. The Dark Boss dies, and the Minotaur still gets the +1 for combat resolution for overkill. On the other hand, without the help of the Gors, a lot less of my orcs die. The Razor Gore, with all its attacks and its impact hits, and the Stone Troll only managed to kill off 2 of my Big Unz. For their part, the Big Unz completely failed to hurt either the Chaos Troll or the Razor Gore. Can't attack the Minotaur because he's in a challenge. But the Stone Troll does manage to bash 2 wounds onto the Chaos Troll. So when all is said and done, I've got a banner, 2 units with close order, I put 2 wounds onto the Chaos Troll, and I have a rear charge, which gives me a total combat result of 7. The Brayherds managed to do 5 wounds to me, and they have 1 unit that's close order for a total of 6. I actually won that combat. So those 3 units of my opponent have to make a 7 or less break test. I don't outnumber them 2-1, so an 8 would be a fallback in good order. The Chaos Troll falls back in good order, and he's pursued by my Stone Troll. The Razor Gore breaks and flees, and the Minotaur gives ground. Since it's my opponent's turn next, the Orc Big Unz follow up into the Minotaur. Well, that was kind of surprisingly nice. Back to the Beastmen Brayherds. In the command phase, the Minotaur again goes and tries to attract the gaze of the gods, and he rolls Stupidity again. Alright, that knocks him back down to leadership 7. The Razor Gore on the left goes and charges into my Orc Auror Boys. I stand and shot. I was a little hopeful about this. The Razor Gore only has 1 wound remaining, so a lucky shot could bring him down. Didn't happen. The Chaos Spawn was able to charge into the flank of my Stone Troll fighting the Chaos Troll. The Gores are kind of stuck behind the Minotaur and don't really have anywhere convenient to go. And the Razor Gore on the right failed to rally and kept on moving to the edge of the board. So over to close combat, and on the left, the Razor Gore manages to kill off 3 of my Orc boys. That should have left me with 2 attacks to go back into the Razor Gore. Again, looking for a lucky hit to bring it down. I don't get it, but they do manage to just fall back in good order. Again, the Razor Gore pursues into them. I'm probably going to die in the next combat phase, but if I don't, I might get another shot at getting that lucky hit. So in the Troll v Spawn combat, the Spawn charges in and puts 1 wound on my Stone Troll, which isn't too bad. In return, my Stone Troll clubs the Chaos Troll to death. The Stone Troll then gets a vomit attack at the end of the round. It hits automatically, but it does need a 6 to wound, but I managed to get it, and so the Spawn takes a wound. Nice job, Apex. That means the Spawn has a combat result of 2, 1 for the wound and 1 for the flank, but Apex has a combat result of 3 because he has close order. Spawn is of course unbreakable, so it only gets pushed back, but hey, way to go, you feisty little Stone Troll. In the Minotaur versus the Big Unz fight, the Gorbel is clearly distracted by getting the stink eye from his gods 2 rounds in a row and only manages to kill 1 Big Un. The Big Uns don't do any damage to him, but they do have a combat result of 2 for close order and banner versus the Minotaur's 1. He's outnumbered 2 to 1, so he's looking at a 6 or less break test, which he fails and he takes off. The Minotaur flees through the Gores, who now have to take a panic test of their own, which they manage to pass, but the Big Uns are charging in after him and charge the Gores. The heck is going on? Are the Orcs doing well? Back to the Orc and Goblin turn, the only thing that I can do is move the Boar Boys. They failed their leadership test to see if they can march. Again, I've forgotten that I have a boss in that unit, so I'm testing on a 6. That means they don't have the movement to get anywhere very useful, so they just kind of ineffectually pivot. Over to combat, and I'm going to start with the Orc Big Uns. The hope is that I can break these Gores and then pursue into the flank of the Chaos Spawn and help deal with that whole situation. And the Orcs go nuts. With only 6 attacks, I managed to kill 4 of the Gore, leaving only the True Hornet to attack back. I take no damage back. The Gores need a 7 or less to fall back in good order, and a Snake Eyes to give ground. They get Snake Eyes. They just get pushed back a little bit into the spawn, so they don't really end up going anywhere. Now these plucky Gores. So no assistance is coming in the Troll versus the Spawn fight, but it turns out he doesn't need it. The Spawn fails to put any damage onto Apex Crater Crest, and it takes a wound in return, again losing the combat and getting pushed back another 2 inches. Or maybe just an inch, he stops before he hits the Minotaur. Regardless though, that Spawn is just on 1 wound remaining. But all good news has to come to an end. The Razor Gore easily destroys the last 2 remaining R boys and reforms to face the rest of the battle. So back to the Brayherds. That Razor Gore on the left attempts a charge against the Troll. The Razor Gore has Swift Stride, but he's also in a forest, meaning the 2d6 that he normally rolls, he has to choose the lower amount. Still, I don't need my Troll's run of good luck to get interrupted by a charge from the Razor Gore, so I'm happy when the Razor Gore managed to fail. In continuing good news, the Gorbel fails to rally, so he keeps moving away from the combat. Excellent news, slightly mitigated by the fact that the Razor Gore on the right did manage to rally, and now when you rally you can move and even march, so he is right back in the fight. So back to the close combat phase, and we're going to do the Troll versus the Chaos Spawn. Apex Crater Crest cannot be stopped. The Troll kills the Spawn and takes no damage in return. This Stone Troll has defied all the odds. He is unstoppable. He reforms to face the Razor Gore that was trying to charge him. I do not expect that he's going to pass his stupidity test in the next round, but I at least want him pointed in the right direction to accept the charge. Over to the Big Un Gore combat. Gores are not as good if they don't get their charge. I don't know if they pass their Primal Fury this round, but regardless, the Orcs and the Gores both strike at the same time. The Gores do no damage to the Orc Big Uns. It doesn't help that my opponent's dice have just gone ice cold. Mine, however, are absolutely on fire, and the Big Uns, and we get to use our spears this round, kill off 4 more Gores. Now they're well and truly outnumbered 2 to 1, and they break and flee, and not only that, they flee an absolutely miserable 3 inches. To which my Big Uns respond, "We can top that," and roll a double 1. Absolutely ridiculous, but you know what, Big Uns? You have performed far better than I thought you would. You've been fighting hard, it's okay if you're a little tired. So now it's back to the Orc and Goblin turn, and we're going to do our stupidity test first, and the Troll rolls a 5. Troll leadership is 4, or at least that's what I think. I think to myself, you know, a lot of stats have changed in this game. I better double check that number just to be sure. Look it up, and Stone Trolls are the one and only troll type that has leadership 5, Apex Crater Crest has passed his stupidity test. This is the world's best troll. He declares a charge into that Razor Gore, and he manages to do it. He's on a rampage. The Big Unz declare a charge on the Gore that are 1 inch in front of them, and they manage to run them down, which is nice. Not only that, the Boar Boys are able to pass their leadership test to be able to march and so scoot out of the charge arc of the Razor Gore. Are we winning? Close combat phase, and yes, we're winning! Stone Troll gets to attack first and bashes in the head of the Razor Gore. This one lone Stone Troll has killed off a Chaos Spawn, a Chaos Troll, and a Razor Gore, and saved the Big Unz with his charge. Absolutely crazy. I want to keep this guy alive. I just have him overrun after defeating the Razor Gore. In my opponent's turn, all he does is he rallies his Minotaur, and the Razor Gore moves to the rear arc of my Orc units. It was a great comeback, but this looks problematic. So it is now round 6, the last turn for the Orcs and Goblins. Well, nothing really to do in this situation but to charge. Big Unz and the Boar Boys both declare charge on the Minotaur. We're going to try this again. This time we both get in. On the other side of the field, I'm pretty sure the Stone Troll failed his stupidity and shuffles off to the left. Over to close combat, Gorbel passes his Primal Fury check, but I still get to attack first. The problem is that I'm pretty sure I forgot that the entire front rank gets to fight. That means I'm only attacking with 2 Boar Boys and a Big Un. Now we are strength 4 and AP -2, so there is a shot. I've got 4 attacks from the Boar Boys because of Furious Charge. They all fail. 1 attack from the Big Un. He fails. But the Boars finally manage to put a wound on this Minotaur. In return, my opponent is really torn who to attack, the Boar Boys or the Orc Big Unz. On the one hand, this is kind of a close game. If he can kill off all of the Boar Boys, that's a good amount of points that he can score at the end. However, with the -2 AP, the Boar Boys are still going to have a 5-up armor save. It's more likely that he's going to get more casualties on the Orc side and drive up the combat results, so he goes with them. He manages to kill off 4 of them, which is great. I mean, not great for me, but good for him. It does, however, mean that I've got 2 close order units, a banner, and a wound for a total of 4 versus his 4 wounds. That's a draw, but I have a musician. The Minotaur loses by 1, is outnumbered 2 to 1, so he's looking at a 6 or less break test, which he fails. The Minotaur takes off, but again, I roll a set of really pathetic pursuit rolls and don't catch him. I don't even come close. Now again, with the FAQ, the Boar Boys should be rolling an extra d6 because of Swiss Stride, but we were playing before that change. So last round of the game, and the Minotaur fails its rally test yet again and runs off the table. Giant swing for the Orcs in the last round. I think he was on borrowed time, though. I think he knew this wasn't his day. The Razor Gore, however, does complete a charge into the rear of the Orc Big Unz. I was hoping I would have pursued a little bit further and gotten away from that guy, but I didn't. So Razor Gore gets to attack first with its impact hits and all that stuff, and he kills off 3 of my Big Unz, one of which is the musician. So I've only got the standard bearer left, but he wheels around and stabs the pig in the snout. Just absolutely on fire, these guys. So this is a big result. The game is close. If I lose the Big Unz and their banner, that means it's going to be a tie. If they hold, then I'm going to win. The Razor Gore has 3 wounds. The Orc Big Unz have a banner. They're close order because, again, the FAQ where you have to be unit strength 5 in order to claim close order bonus isn't around yet. And it caused a wound. 3 versus 3. The Orcs have drawn the combat, and we have won. Except we actually didn't. You guys probably have realized our mistake. We forgot to add in the Razor Gore's bonus of 2 for a rear attack. I don't know what we were thinking here. It's not like that's a new rule. It's always been that way. We should have known to add that in. Had we remembered that, the Orc Big Unz would have been looking at a 4 or less leadership test. That was so that they could give ground, though. Weirdly, the Razor Gores are war beasts, so I believe their unit strength is 1. So it wouldn't outnumber me 2 to 1, so even a leadership 6 test would just have me fall back in good order. The Boar Boys wouldn't have to make a panic test because the unit fleeing would be unit strength 5 or less, and even if they did have a panic test, they're above 50%, so it would just rally at the end of it. So yes, The Big Unz should have made a leadership test because they did lose that combat, but it's almost the exact same situation as what happened in the last game where I forgot close order for the Night Goblins, and that was a pivotal combat. So I feel like it's only fair we forget a combat modifier which changes the result of this game, which is a victory for the Orcs, and an absolutely crazy one at that. Second game of Warhammer the Old World at 500 points, and the momentum swapped back and forth several times throughout the game. And the regular Orcs ended up winning, which I'm thrilled about. Yeah, we had a real tough start. I do not think I played them particularly well. I think I was still a little bit disappointed by the last minute win against the Night Goblins in the game before. But once the Big Unz and the Trolls started cooking, there was just no stopping them. It was fantastic. Anyway, for a 500 point game, this video has gone on far too long. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, observations, or concerns. I'll see you on the next one.